So here I'm just going to take the putty eraser, I'm just going to adjust the top of it to just give a bit of a fine point. And what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to take back some of the border lines of the tonal areas that I've put down, because I think some of them are a little bit too strong. So I'm very lightly just dabbing on the lines. I'm not putting any pressure, I'm not rubbing, I'm just slightly dabbing, and that's just taking it off a little bit. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a flat brush and I'm going to go over those tonal areas and just very lightly brush in the graphite into the paper. And what that's going to do is those angled lines that I shaded those tonal areas in with will have very, very small spaces that highlight paper. But because they're parallel to each other, it's easier for me now to take that brush and to just smooth the graphite in to fill those small little lines that might appear. So I'm just going to do this around all of the tonal areas. But again, I'm not pushing the brush into the paper very hard, it's just quite soft. And I need to be careful as well that I don't overdo it, because we want the skin to be smooth, but we want it to look realistic as well. So it's important to use this sparingly where it's needed. Also, it's important as well to make sure that you don't go into the dark areas too much and then spread that around the light areas. While I'm starting at the darkest shadows and moving into the light, I'm also aware that I don't need to overdo it in the light areas too much, because I will drag in that dark tone and spread it around, which I don't want either. Here again, I'm just adjusting the putty eraser to a fine point again. I'm just cleaning up some of the edges where some of that brush has taken the graphite out of the border. And I'm doing that around the neck, I'm doing that around the eye and the nose, those light areas that I've put aside. Here I'm just going over the hair and beard area. I'm not doing too much with this, but I just want to spread out because I don't want there to be too much white space between the lines that I put previously. But I do want to keep some of the texture. As I said before, this is a base layer for what I'm going to do now. Here I'm using a mechanical pencil. This is a 0.5 tip. So basically, if you've seen a felt tip pen, it's quite thin at the top, and you can see how thin it is there with the pencil. What I'm doing here is I'm just going to create some diagonal lines looking at the photograph to see the direction of the hairlines, and I'm just trying to replicate that. So you'll see short bursts of line because this part of the hair is cut very short and it's very fine, so I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following that same direction, creating many little dashes of line, and again looking at my photograph to inform me exactly where they need to go. The edges won't be perfectly straight where the hair meets the skin. There'll be some stray hairs there, and I need to make that realistic. It's very important that you don't try to clean up something that doesn't need to be cleaned up. You follow the photograph, and the photograph tells you what needs to be there. So don't try to perfect things too much, just follow what you see and carry it through. So with this mechanical pencil, I would highly recommend getting one, because for detailing and texture, which is what we're really doing here, we're developing the texture of the hair, that base layer that we've created. So we already had the tone, but we're adding the detail on top. And obviously, if you want some of the areas to be darker, you can just make sure you add more hairs and less space in between those hairs, and that will generate the darkness you're looking for. But this is a 2B mechanical pencil, and for detailing it is excellent to have a mechanical pencil, I think, especially for drawing around the hair, but then also for drawing around the eye with some of the fine lines, with the eyebrows, with the eyelashes, but also just to get some sharp lines. It's very useful. That said, if you don't have a mechanical pencil, you can just use a 2B pencil, but I would suggest that you make it very sharp and continue to keep it sharp, because once that becomes blunt, then your lines will become thick, and so you want to make sure that you've got these neat fine lines and that can happen with a very, very sharp pencil. So I'm just going around again looking at the photograph, and I'm looking at the flow of the hair, the direction that the hairs are going in, and you'll see when you really examine that up close that it's not all perfect. It's not all going in the same direction. Sometimes it's going left, sometimes it's straight, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's crossing over itself. So it doesn't always move in a uniform way. So you need the photograph to tell you what to do. That's your reference. That's your primary source image. That's what holds the information. And then it's really your task to take that information and put it onto the paper as you see it, as accurately as you possibly can. So in the bottom area of the beard, you'll see it's darker, so I'm making sure that I'm putting in a lot of fine lines there that merge together to create that darkness while keeping the texture of the hair. So with this strand of longish hair, you can see the movement of my arm in trying to capture the strands of the hair that are clumped together and moving in that direction. And I'm just going back and forward there, trying to make sure that the texture is in that little clump of hair. And then because the top part of the hair is a little bit longer, I'm going to make those lines a little bit longer too. But again, I'm looking at the direction, and sometimes the direction in the photograph that as I see it may not make sense to what I think it should be, but I must follow the picture, That's where the information lies. That's what we need to translate onto the paper. So from what I can see, the hair moves in a few different directions. So I'm trying to capture that, especially at the back. And this does take a bit of time, but if you put that time into it, the detailing will be worth it, and the texture you'll get will be quite strong. So do take your time with it. Remember, these videos are sped up, so in real time this is taking quite a lot of time to do, but it pays off.